Shuniji, in the meantime, you have a wonderful question
Yes.
in the question answer box.
Yes. Okay.
You can start with that, I suppose.
Okay.
And a very, very tricky and very, very wonderful question.
Can section 29 A, B, C, and D be levied simultaneously? Really, it is one of the, but I do not know why the attendee is anonymous. Maybe it is some officer who is learned officer who is amongst us, and I'll be thankful if it is so. Because, my dear friends, what is happening is probably the approach is target oriented nowadays.
There is a untraceable
untraceable, not identifiable at least.
Okay.
So, I mean, under the zeal of making out a case somehow, or because of the target oriented approach, sometimes. So, in this case, also what happened in the subsequent cases, now they have applied 29D and 29B also. Now they are saying, no, okay, you are saying 29D is not applicable, let us apply 29B. So to that, I would say, now it is making it bad for many reasons. Firstly, there has to be reason. In reason, you have to say that how and why this property is Benami. Then you will mention the clause, and you have to be very specific on that. You have to be consciously clear on that. You cannot be factually wrong. You cannot be legally wrong. So therefore, subsequently, it cannot be applied at all. Number one. Number two, even at the beginning stage, one has to see what clause is applicable. If 4 clauses have been applied, have been provided under the statute, that means different situations have been envisaged under the law. If it would have been covered under one situation, there was no need to create so many clauses. So that means presence of one clause in most likely situation is likely to create a situation of exclusion of the other clause, whereby other situation could exist. So one is creating the exclusivity of the other. Both cannot simultaneously exist. For example, now clause B and clause D cannot exist simultaneously because clause D on some different parameters. Clause B is saying that clause D is saying, for example, and let me share that screen again. I will read it before you because without reading it, it will not be that much clear. I'll go to the definition clause. Yes. Now kindly see, B is saying a transaction or arrangement in respect to property carried out or made in a fictitious name. So meaning thereby that person B has to be fictitious. Now if B is fictitious, D is just reverse of that. D is saying no, B is existing, the person providing the consideration is fictitious. So how can in one breath you can say B is fictitious? In same breath you can say no, B is real, somebody else is fictitious. How can both the clauses be applied simultaneously? So in most of the cases I have seen that mostly clause A and D are being applied simultaneously. A and D. Now A also is saying that there is person B and there is person A. A has paid the consideration for B. So that means A is traceable and he has paid the consideration on behalf of B and benefit is for A. So now how can another situation exist? In D, whereby it is saying that B is not traceable itself, the A is not traceable itself, the person providing the consideration is not traceable itself. So the law is drafted mostly in such a manner that at one point of time, only one situation can exist. So if they overlap, that means the department itself is making its case weak and not sustainable. Yes, sir. I hope Nilesh bhai can speak now.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Okay, sorry, Khemka-ji, but we welcome you today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ashwini-ji, can we take the questions first?
Yes, yes, of course.
Okay.
We have the benefit of presence of Vipin Agarwal ji also. Vipin ji,
okay.
You can see on your video, he's a very, very senior chartered accountant, senior colleague. And as you know, because you know how we develop, when the person in front of us makes very good analysis. So Vipin ji have been asking such a queries that we have to go back to the books, to the original, discuss amongst us, and then go back to Vipin ji. So like an entrepreneur, he keeps on testing us. So today also I'm sure he will be asking one of the fantastic questions or giving some very good views which we might be even missing.
So
Yes,
apart from chartered accountant as a profession, advocate is also a very big profession. If you ask only one question from chartered accountant side, we can only ask the advocates only one question, sir. Why there is no GST on advocate?
Because advocates do not provide service.
Okay.
GST is earlier when we were service tax, we used to say tax तो service के ऊपर लगेगा. अब advocate तो कोई service देते ही नहीं है.
Sir, advocate को कोई हरा नहीं सकते.
नहीं, नीलेश भाई, you know the first people on whom service tax was levied among the professionals were chartered accountants only.
Okay.
And the first writ petition which was filed in the country on behalf of the chartered accountants challenging the service tax was filed by me only.
Okay.
But it was the lack of support from the institute. Very frankly, I am saying this, and lack of any political, political will to challenge it. That even chartered accountants today, because chartered accountants saw it more as a business, they thought that let it come, let more people come into the net so that we will have more business, rather than challenging it.
We will not drag into this issue now. We will stick on this topic. Okay. Yes. I will now share my screen. Sorry. I will ask the questions, basic questions, sir. The first question, common questions, common issues arising under new Benami law. Any of the faculty can answer, whoever is answering this. The first question is that the practice of holding assets in other names has been ages old customary practice in India, which is now intended to be curbed after introduction of new Benami law 2016. So whether old transactions done before the enactment of the new law in 2016 would also be hit, or it would apply to new transactions only? More importantly, what are the future time limit prescribed under law?
Nilesh bhai, as far as the earlier first part of the question is concerned, I think I have covered it up. That because of the word held and because of 1-3, it is creating some confusion. Now there are 3 judgments in the country, 2 high courts on the one side, other high court on the other side, and it has been stayed by the Honorable Supreme Court. So matter is stayed pending in the Supreme Court. But the most important part is, what about the future time limit? Now on future time limit, I remember, the words of Shri Krishna in Gita, that समय अनंत है, ना इसका प्रारंभ है ना अंत है. तो इन्होंने सोचा समय से क्या बांधना है इसको. तो जब पास्ट की कोई टाइम लिमिट नहीं है, तो फ्यूचर की भी नहीं होगी, ना भूत ना भविष्य. So, I mean, there is no future time limit even, but to say of past.
Okay, thank you, sir. The next question is whether old transactions shall be examined and determined as per the old definition or new definition of Benami transactions, as is given in the amended act, and to what extent new provisions can be applied on old transactions.
Yes, Khemka sir, you would like to reply it?
Yes.
Okay.
See, as Ashwini sir said, that so far as the attachment of property is concerned, the word held has been used in the act. But so far as the prosecution is concerned, the word entering into the Benami transaction is there in both the provisions. So the ticklish situation is that if the Benami transaction was entered into prior to 1/11/2016, and the prosecution is now sought to be initiated. Suppose it was the Benami transaction was entered into, say, in 2011, and the prosecution is sought to be launched today. The problem with the officers are having is how to apply a definition which did not exist prior to 1/11/2016. When it did not exist earlier, then how this definition can be applied to the prosecutions to launch a prosecution for an act which happened in 2011. So what they are doing very strangely, that they are in most of the show cause notices using both the definitions, the definition prior to 1/11/2016 also, because it was a wider definition, and the definition after 1/11/2016 also. But I think that is wrong. The earlier definition today does not exist on the statute book, So prosecutions ideally should not be launched for the transactions which were entered into prior to 1/11/2016, but the judgment is yet to come from many courts, because they have we have just started getting notices and only launching some of the prosecutions. So the law will develop on it, but that remains the situation as on date.
Okay, thank you, sir. The third question was, what kind of transactions will be treated as Benami transactions, and whether there are any exclusions and savings, whether it covers only immovable property or the other assets also?
The first part, I think we have covered. Part A, B, C, D, anything covering up in part A, B, C, D can be covered. And properties of any nature, movable, immovable, any damn thing on earth, which you can see, you can touch, even you cannot touch, even license, intangible, tangible, all are covered.
Okay, thank you. Next one is, what are the consequences of entering into a Benami transactions, whether there is any punishment or fine, etc. also?
Yes, Kinkaji, you will take up.
Yeah. See, the law, so far as attachment of the property and the confiscation is concerned, that has already been touched upon. That is one of the consequences, that any property which is found to be Benami can be attached and confiscated without any compensation. That is one implication. And the other implication is the prosecution. For the offenses which took place before 1/11/2016, the punishment provided is only 3 years, and there are no exceptions. There is no mens rea as such specifically included in the offense, in the provision. But for the offenses which have been committed or which will be committed post 1/11/2016, there are only 3 situations in which a Benamidar and beneficial owner and any abettor can be prosecuted for a Benami transaction, and those 3 situations are: number 1, if the Benami transaction was entered into in order to avoid or violate a law, 1. Second, if it was entered into in order to avoid payment of statutory dues, or it was entered into in order to avoid the payment of to a creditor. So these are the only 3 situations in which the prosecution can be launched against beneficial owners, Benami, Dar, and any abettor.
Okay. Who are the authorities to implement this law, and what is the appellate mechanism provided?
Ashwini ji.
Sorry, can you please repeat for a second?
Who are the authorities to implement this law?
Yes. Sorry.
What is the appellate mechanism provided?
Yeah. Firstly, a unit has been carved out from the Income Tax Department's investigation wing, who has been named as Benami Prohibition Unit, and 2 or 3 officers are there, firstly, first of all, initiating officer, who is of the rank of ACIT or DCIT. Then we have approving authority, then DI. Then we have, after the matter is over, from here it is referred to the adjudicating authority, which was earlier common with PMLA. Now the competent authorities of SAFEMA are being appointed as adjudicing authority. And once the order is passed by the adjudicing authority, then appellate tribunal. And appellate tribunal is same, which is located in Delhi and common for SAFEMA, FEMA, PMLA, NDPC, NDPS, COFICOSA, same common tribunal. Nowadays, nobody is there because the sole judge who was left, he has also retired last month. So today there is no judge. They are in the process of appointment. And then after that, we have High Court and Supreme Court. That's it.
Okay. Now an important question.
And for
Supreme Court judgment also, sir.
And for prosecution, there are special courts designated under the law. That is, so the prosecutions will take place in a special court which has been designated everywhere in every district.
Okay. Now an important question. If a Benami asset has been held by a person which was acquired by him from his valid and tax paid sources, yet can it be attracted as Benami under the new law?
Very, very important question. There is a confusion in the mind of many people, and this is a very good question which you have asked. It makes no distinction. If something can be covered within the definition of Benami transaction, it is Benami. Whether the tax paid money has been used or not tax money has been used. If it is Benami, it is Benami. And the prosecution will also take place if it fits into the criteria as given in section 53, the 3 criteria which Khemka sir has just discussed. So irrespective of anything, if it is Benami, it is Benami.
Whether the Benamidar, who is simply namesake lender, be also made liable for fine and prosecution?
सर इनको तो बहुत अच्छा ट्रीटमेंट दिया है नेम लेंडर को, बेनामीदार की डेफिनेशन में दिया है कि एंड इंक्लूड्स द पर्सन हु इज अ नेम लेंडर. सो लॉ कुछ इस तरह से कह रहा है, अच्छा आप नेम लेंडर हैं, आइए आपका तो बड़ा अच्छा ट्रीटमेंट करेंगे, और आप तो एडमिटेड केस हो बेनामीदार हैं, आपको तो कुछ प्रूव भी नहीं करना. सो आई मीन हिटिंग रियली वेरी हार्ड. इफ समबडी सेज कि सर मुझे नहीं पता, मेरे चेयरमैन साहब ने कहा था बैंक अकाउंट खोल लो अपने नाम से, साइन कर दो, मैंने कर दिया. नो, इट मेक्स नो डिस्टिंक्शन. अगर आपने गलत काम किया है तो किया है.
Okay. Next question. Yes, sir.
Whether Nilesh, whether his boss will be prosecuted or not, this person will surely be prosecuted.
Okay. If a transaction has been done as Benami by mistake, without any malified intention of tax evasion, can it be reversed so as to avoid unbearable consequences under the new law? In other words, whether there is any scope of compounding or settlement provided under the new law?
Very strangely, despite the fact that this is an old age habit of people to do Benami transactions and people were unaware of such a harsh law, very small window was given in section 190 of Finance Act 2016, and thereafter nothing has come. No compounding, no settlement, no even U-turn. I cannot even say that, sir, okay, I am correcting this transaction, now I am transferring it to the real owner. No, section 6.1 says no such transfer may be done. If it is done, it will be void. So no correction, no U-turn, no compounding, no settlement. Consequences are imminent. That is how the law has been drafted.
Okay. Though the criminal intention or mens rea is not required for making attachment of property, but whether the same is necessary for the purpose of prosecution the offenders for a Benami transaction?
Actually, very good question you have asked, and I will request Khemka sir to explain it properly, because this is such a crucial issue which each of we professionals and the persons who are going to be affected must understand it very carefully.
See, as such, the provisions don't talk of mens rea, but by implication, so far as the prosecutions which can be launched in respect of the offences committed post 1/11/2016, by implication, the mens rea has to be there, because it says that only in 3 conditions when the Benami transaction was entered into in order to avoid a law or avoid the payment of statutory dues or avoid the payment of to the creditor. So that implies that there has to be a mens rea. But so far as the prosecutions for offences committed before 1/11/2016 is concerned, there is nothing like in the provision about the mens rea, except that whenever we will argue, we will say that there should be mens rea, because mens rea should be there inherent in a criminal provision. But how far it will go, we do not know right now.
Okay. Whether there is any protection for the bona fide buyer, what's his and property status under the new law, whether his property is liable for attachment, confiscation, and also he is liable for fine and prosecution.
Ripinji had also asked this question today afternoon only, because this is affecting many people in the country, many, because transaction keeps on happening. A transaction may be originally Benami, but there may be in the chain now the people who have done the transaction bona fide. Section 27 talks about the protection to bona fide purchasers, but it says 2 conditions should be fulfilled. A, there should be condition of payment of adequate consideration, and the purchaser should not have knowledge of there being a Benami transaction, that's property being a Benami property which he is buying. But the question arose, who has to prove this fulfillment of these 2 conditions? Burden is upon whom? Now this matter we argued before Honorable Appellate Tribunal in the case of Kavita Infrastructure of Pune and Virgo Township of Jaipur. 2 orders have come from Honorable Justice Manmohan Singh from Tribunal, wherein they have said no, burden is upon the AO. Burden under the Benami law is on the person who alleges property to be Benami, as burden to prove is upon the person who is alleging. So here the burden should be upon the AO, and very good judgment. So these 2 conditions have to be fulfilled. Only then the benefit of 27 will be given, and which is a very thin line, very thin line.
So in that case, what precautions should be taken while buying a property so that a person does not ends up in buying a Benami property and his newly bought property is not attached and he is not unnecessarily hit under the new law?
Actually, we chartered accountants can do a very, very good role in doing this checklist, providing this checklist. Now, whatever transactions are done by our clients, if they do not want to get into trouble, then they must get it examined from the competent chartered accountant. Why?
Okay.
Because there is a requirement of verifying the genuineness. Only then the bona fide thing will come. How genuineness? Suppose you are buying a property of say 10 crores and that person is hardly a peon. He does not have the salary income. And on behalf of that person, the seller, he is not coming to deal. To deal, somebody else is coming. And you are depositing rupees 10 crore in his account. You are not even interacting with him. So, I mean, all these questions will be asked at later stage. So, therefore, all those things should be kept in mind that the transaction should look to be bona fide, adequate consideration should be paid, and whatever other conditions I am saying that it should be fulfilled. Only then, even if you are stuck by mistake, you can at least claim protection under Section 27.
Okay. Whether an asset held in the name.
Yes.
Yes,
Nilesh, normally people who purchase the properties, they are always goody with the seller. So now the time has come that we have to ask certain tough questions to the seller. As Ashwini explained, some background questions will have to be asked from the seller in order to check whether it is crime money, whether there can be any PMLA angle or Benami angle. So all these questions need to be asked from the seller before one purchases any property.
One minute more only. That, for example, the question can be if something is not fully, bona fide, apparently bona fide. Then this question will be asked, okay, did you acquire the property? I mean, from the seller, this question, he will say, yes, I could. Where from you acquired the property? Funds were paid by you or from somebody else? I mean, there may be times that even this many questions will have to be asked if apparently everything is not clear and good.
Okay. So something due diligence has to be done always.
Yes.
Whether an asset held in the name of family members or in-laws may also be hit under the new law.
Whatever is there in the exception, that is the only rescue measure. Whatever is not there in the exception, all are Benami. It could be Sala. Government has very, I mean, eyesore or what kind of term should I say with the Sala and Damad. So any such thing, one such case is going on in the country where Damadji has been covered now under Benami law, lock, stock and barrel.
Even property purchased in the name of father and mother, even that can be Benami.
So मतलब you want to say that मोदी है तो मुमकिन नहीं है ये सब.
मोदी है तो सीधे रास्ते चलो, मैं इस तरह से कहूँगा.
Whether new law is applicable also on pure business transactions done and assets held by the listed companies or other business organizations and their promoters, directors, or it can be bought only for immovable properties held by the persons in public service and politicians, etc.
It makes no distinction. ईश्वर की नजर में सब बराबर हैं. वो वाली बात है यहाँ. सब business, non-business, listed, non-listed. Many listed companies have been hit under this law. Even from Bombay, there are many companies, and from many other places also. I mean, if it fits into that concept of Benami, it tends to pierce even the corporate wheel also at times. It has that capacity also.
So can you give some?
That one full-fledged session can be had, Nilesh bhai, if there will be liking for this, that in what circumstances Benami law can be applied, even piercing the corporate wheel.
Okay. So can you give some areas where non-residents or cross-border transactions have been hit beyond anyone's imagination?
Yes. For example, a non-resident who buys land in the name of his Indian friend because he himself was not competent to buy because of the restrictions placed by RBI, say agriculture land. Or suppose a company, US company investing in Indian shares through Mauritius route, and it is held that Mauritian company is just a Benami company, not a beneficial owner, real beneficial owner. I mean, in all those circumstances, the property lying in India only can be treated as Benami, not abroad. So person here living in India can be prosecuted for that.
Okay. Whether there are any safeguards under this law to prevent unintended hardship to the people?
I think Khemka ji would explain it. I would say, I mean, the appellate mechanism is, redressal mechanism is missing. Redressal governance mechanism is missing. At many places, law has been drafted in vague manner. It is drafted in such a manner that it has an overreach. Policy framework is missing. So those safeguards are required.
Sir, whether there would be any interplay or overlapping between Benami law, income tax law, and Prevention of Money Laundering Act?
Today we discussed strong interplay between additions under section 68 and 29D. So there is a strong interplay. Now within PMLA also there is a strong interplay, because the person who is doing money laundering, in many cases he does the transaction in some other names. So he will be hit by PMLA also, he will be hit by Benami law also. And that is the irony. All these are additionals. I mean, it is not that action under one law will exclude under the other. No, it is written in the act itself that it is in addition to other laws, not in subjugation of other laws.
And if it was covered under 447 of Companies Act,
yes,
then even SFIO will come in.
Yes.
Sir, can you discuss the famous film star wherein his company's Alibag Bungalow was found to be Benami and attached?
No, this was the first popular case of the country, and when this my interview was also published in Economic Times on this, wherein I had opined at that time that this is an unguided missile loaded with nuclear arsenal, and this interview was in 2017 and 2020. It has been proved now, 2021, the way it has hit many such cases. The case was like that: one company was formed to acquire property in Alibag. So Alibag only natives could have purchased the property. So allegation was that a native was taken as director, and property was purchased in the name of the director, and subsequently that is how the things were done. And that director was only namesake director, so the property in his name was held to be Benami. He was Benamidar, and this film star and their family was treated as beneficial owner. But somehow Adjudicating Authority has given the relief on the ground that the company is an independent person, so company can acquire the property, and etc. Matter is pending in the appellate tribunal. So many such cases are there in the country, but because of the name and fame, this came in the light. But otherwise, many such cases are still going on.
Now, before I request Bijal to take all the questions, sir, can you? We can continue for 10-15 more minutes. No, not an issue, sir.
Yeah, no problem. Because many people are asking about the Supreme Court case judgment also, or any question on prosecution also can be asked, because Khemka ji is there with us today.
Yeah, I would now request Bijal to please take all the questions which are already asked by our members. Yes, Bijal.
So sir, there is one question: whether the ruling of this judgment, that is regarding this software judgment, will apply to purchase of license to use software by an Indian resident from another Indian resident after AY 1213, after insertion of explanation 4 to section 916. I think Gupta sir, you can answer.
Very good question, Sharad ji. Now, first of all, let us see that under which provision of 194J is there, that when the payment is made on account of royalty, then the tax has to be withheld. Now, the royalty has been defined there under section 194J to mean royalty as in explanation 2 to clause 6 of subsection 1 of section 9. Now, explanation 2 has been referred. Explanation 4 has not been referred, and that may be because of this fact that explanation 4 was brought later on in 2012. So when we read para 73 of the Supreme Court decision, now it says that even under explanation 2, Roman small 5, now the license has to be for the acts which are prescribed under section 14 small a and small b of Indian Copyright Act. And since this license is not in respect of those acts which are mentioned in section 14A or 14B, then it may not constitute copyright. But now explanation 4 has been added by Finance Act 2012, which has been held to have prospective effect by the Supreme Court. But this explanation 4 has not been mentioned in section 194J. But then if we read the decision of Supreme Court later in para 76, because Mr. Pardiwala sought to argue that this explanation 4 now does not explain the meaning of royalty as given in explanation 2, then that argument was repelled by their lordships in para 76. So meaning, and rather their lordships have said that explanation 4 now can be said to be expanding the scope of the word royalty as given in explanation 2 to section 916. So after 2012, now it will be a challenge to say that this kind of a payment for purchase of license to use software is not royalty. So there may be problem. Nilesh Chitres, software companies have now moved to what is called subscription model. In this model, they collect annual fee, which is labeled as annual maintenance charge for a software. Whether this decision will apply to such charges. So first of all, let us understand this basic concepts in taxation, that the nomenclature of a particular transactions may not be determinative. Now the substance will have to be seen and the form has to yield to the substance. So the whatever is the agreement, that will have to be read in a holistic manner, and in order to find out its true character, then it may be on account of the payment for any copyright, or it may be covered under the expanded definition of explanation 4, and therefore even if it is termed as annual maintenance charge, but it may constitute royalty post 2012. Yes, of course, prior to 2012 it cannot be said to be covered under section 14 small a and small b of Indian Copyright Act, and as per the finding of Honorable Supreme Court in para 73 of this decision, that may not constitute royalty. But then post 2012, as I said little while ago while replying to the query of Mr. Sharad Sheikh, now that may be a challenge. The next query, Bijal, is from Dinesh Kumar, I think.
Yes, sir. So he's asking, post amendment by Finance Act 2012, are all payments for computer software are considered as royalty and liable to TDS under section 194J or 195 as the case may be? If that's so, then all such payments are revenue expenditure irrespective of the amount and the period for which benefits are available?
Insofar your first part of this question is concerned, probably that is not the question. That is
the
given fact.
Fact of
okay. So your question is now, if it is considered as royalty, whether this treatment of this expenditure to be in the nature of royalty would make this expenditure as revenue. No, according to me, now that will not be a determinative test to treat an expenditure as revenue, because if it is a royalty for the purpose of withholding tax, that does not mean that its status will have to be treated as that of the revenue nature. Yes, next please.
Next is from Vijay sir. He's asking for the software downloaded directly from the website or made available by any electronic medium, whether it will constitute as supply of service as transfer or royalty payment received for transfer of IPR relating to software, and whether TDS will be applicable on the same.
Post 2012, Vijay sir, I mean, I have already given reply that it may constitute royalty, and post 2012, of course, for the purpose of 194J.
The next question is, they have given an example that if there is any property registered in the name of person A who denies its ownership,
that has already been answered by Ashwini ji.
Okay. The next is, what will happen to a driver Pune on whose name property acquired in case like Adarsh Cooperative Housing Society? Ashwini sir can answer on this.
Yeah, Bijal, this we answered, that all these
questions probably have been answered by Ashwini ji and Khimka ji.
Okay.
I think now it is time to.
Nilesh, then we can proceed.
Hands have been raised by Mehul Shah, Jignesh Bhimani, and Bharat Modi.
Yeah, so can we allow them to discuss?
Allow them.
No, in webinar it will not be possible.
Okay.
Yeah, Achha, it is there. I think host can do it. Sir, only the last question. It is related to this platform only. So basically we are using Zoom platform. It is to Rakesh sir. a Zoom platform, we normally purchase it from the US, Zoom US. The payment that has been made, whether TDS is deducted. Because what they say, if it is through phone and internet, there is no TDS.
Yes, it may not constitute royalty. Yes, it may not constitute royalty when you happen to make payment to Zoom by downloading it through these modes which you just mentioned.
Okay. So at present, what we are using is our internet and their platform.
Yes, that may not constitute royalty.
Okay, fine. Jignesh Bhimani, please. I think they are not able to. Mehul sir, Mehul Shah. Okay.
Bharat Modi is the next.
Bharat Modi sir. I think this is the first time, but in webinar it is not possible. I think they will not be able to ask questions over here. Anything else? I think now, thank you very much, esteemed faculty. Now I request Sikandar to please propose a very well deserved vote of thanks to the esteemed learned faculty today we have. Yes, Sikandar.
Thank you, Nilesh bhai. It is a great honor to propose vote of thanks to the learned speaker, Dr. Rakesh Gupta, CA Ashwini Taneja sir, Advocate Amit Khemka ji, CA Vipin Agarwal sir. The learned speakers have covered the topic in prescribed time by explaining related provisions and answered the questions asked by the members. We are grateful to the speakers for sharing their knowledge and experience with us. We hope the members have gained the better understanding of the topic. I, on behalf of Borivali Central CP Study Circle, request all the members for a virtual upload. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.